YouTube, this is Nick with Justice League Swag, and I'm going to be bringing you a OTT standard deck profile. The profile itself is pretty straightforward with only one set out. It's not like you have a huge selection of cards to pull from, so I will go into some of the few choices I made that maybe differs from other builds. So let's get into it. First is the grade 3 lineup, which is 4 Imperial Daughter, 4 of CEO Amaterasu, and then 2 of the Deer. This seems to be a pretty standard grade 3 lineup, 10 grade 3s. Having 4 of each of these is really important to get the consistent re-rides in your perfect guards, and having her at 4 is just amazing. She's such a huge pressure card. I've seen some builds that are only maybe running 3 of this, 4 of this, or vice versa, 3 and 4. But to be honest, I think the deck plays best with running 4 of each. And then as for the Deer, I've been doing really well with 2 Deer. It's two's a good number. It's small enough where you don't see it early, and you have to make it that first turn ride, which really hurts. But it's still enough with all the card draw in OTT that you see him plenty. So with the Deer, actually, you need to Soul Blast 2 grade 3s to use his skill, but sometimes you're lucky, and when you do your first turn ride of CEO and then your second turn ride, grade 3 turn ride of Imperial Daughter, if you're lucky enough to get a grade 3 on the soul charge for her, you can immediately on your turn 2 grade 3 put out the Deer and then Soul Blast your 2 grade 3s for a huge push turn. Even if you don't win, you've exhausted a lot of their resources at that point, and it's pretty much smooth sailing from then, and then you can just keep on re-riding and then hopefully get another Deer off if you haven't finished them off. It's kind of important in the OTT mirror match just because the decks and the matches drag out for so long that you need to force out those PGs until finally you can make a push turn and they don't have the PGs in the hand. So for the grade 2 lineup, we have standard 4 Promise Daughter, 4 Satori Hime, and 3 Yellow Witch Mimi. As you can see, I'm not running Silent Tom. Some decks do, some decks don't. It depends on the style of build. Tom's not, he's an okay card if you use him right. With my play style, I feel like I get more value out of Mimi with her Scry skill and combo that off with the power gain of Amaterasu instead of Silent Tom's guard restrict. He's good for early game when you're poking 9 on 9, and if they really want to block it, they have to get rid of quality shield. But then after that, if he's hitting for 10 or 15 and you need to shield for that anyways, wasting a trigger for that's not a problem. But I get more value out of the Scry skill with Mimi. As for Satori Hime, she's a 4 of, but I actually don't use her skill that much. I try to avoid it as much as possible because it does cost a counterblast, and even though this deck isn't too counterblast heavy, it's with your constant re-rides of your grade 3s, which do use counterblasts, and this deck tries to go long game, that you're going to want to save those counterblasts for those cards and not waste it on her. I really only use her against Novogratz when I want to try to check for that damage trigger and set up for defensively, or if you're in a pinch and you're going against a Force Clan and you need to make that 23 magic number to hit. But besides that, I try not to use her if I can avoid it. And then Promise Daughter, she's a solid staple, and I think she will be for a while. That power gain and the pseudo resist makes her really clutch. For the grade 1s, we have 4 Circle Magus, 4 Farfel Magus, 2 Chickens, and then 2 of this gal. So 4 Circle Magus and then 4 Farfel are pretty standard. This gives you your tutor engine and your draw engine if you're lucky enough to ride her. This gives you your scrying, get those triggers in and pump up your Amaterasu. And then we have 2 chickens. 2's fine. I've seen builds that run 1, which I play tested 1. You don't see it enough. I do get the idea that you don't have the soul to use 2 of them, but even if you draw the second one, it's a quality 10k shield. And then if you run 3 or 4, you do see it too much. Now for the last grade one, it was either this or it was going to be Gemini. But I found out with Gemini that you don't need the counter charge if you play this right, and it wasn't really doing much for the deck. So I decided to swap to this gal here, which makes your Vanguard a huge threat. Especially if you don't have Imperial Daughter and you don't have that strong Imperial Daughter ride, you can at least slap this behind CEO Amaterasu, and even just using her skill once, you swing for 31, which is a respectable number. And finally, we'll get into the triggers. The triggers are actually probably the easiest thing to explain here. We got 4 draw triggers, 4 heal triggers, and then 8 critical triggers. I've seen some decks decide to run a 6-6 split on the crits and the draws, and I understand that. But with me personally, with my playstyle, I like to use and abuse deer, so in order to do that, you need to run as many crits as possible, and it's been working out for me. The idea of the draws is mainly for the Novograp matchup, because you can get some more cards in hand for their shield, and then the 5k shield and the draw triggers actually works out because they end up doing pokes anyways. So that's it for my OTT standard deck profile. Hope you got something out of that, and stay tuned for next time. Thanks, guys.